Hi everybody, Sarah here, and I'm continuing on with my Stranger Things reaction videos here with Season 5, Episode 2, The Vanishing of Holly Wheeler. The show starts, we get to see the battle between the Demogorgon and the Wheelers, how, Dad tries to fight him off with a golf club, gets severely injured. Mom tries to protect Holly. She gets severely injured. She does get the Demogorgon with a broken wine bottle, but she ends up severely injured, and the Demogorgon escapes into the Upside Down with Holly. And just at that point, Nancy and Eleven show up. Eleven sees that the portal into the Upside Down is still open, so she runs through there to try and follow the Demogorgon and chase down, if she can rescue Holly. Nancy calls an ambulance to come pick up her parents for their injuries to be treated. They're both pretty severely injured. Anyway, going back to 11, she of course bumps into Hopper in the Upside Down. They have a little conflict because Hopper is not happy to see her there. While they're walking and tracking down the Demogorgon, because the Demogorgon is bleeding, so they're following that trail to try to recover Holly. During that time, 11 realizes that Hopper is injured, so they sit down, she's treating his injuries, and they kind of have this nice little heart-to-heart about why he's being so protective, because his daughter died of cancer and she was this fighter, and he thought his daughter was the bravest person he's ever seen, and he just doesn't think his heart could go through losing another daughter because that was such a hard experience. And they hash it out and they come to an understanding like, look, this is just the way it is. I understand you want to protect me, but we need to take care of what's going on in the Upside Down here. So they continue to follow Holly and the Demogorgon's trail. They find Holly's boot and they run into this massive wall that's kind of looks wet and gooey and is sort of, I don't know, made out of vines or veins and these bubbles of things. Anyway, and they can't figure out a way to get past it. Anyway, going back to Nancy, she is now at the hospital. Her parents are in surgery. Jake and Lucas show up because they hear all of this going on over the radio waves, that an ambulance came to the Wheeler's house, took him to the hospital, so that they're all sitting there. Nancy's feeling incredibly guilty. Being involved in all of this is what brought the Demogorgon's attack, and she's feeling really guilty about it. But Lucas says, hey, I don't feel bad about it. This isn't like your fault. I mean, in fact, it's kind of weird what happened, because why would Vecna just come in and send a Demogorgon to take Holly and just injure your parents and not kill them? If Vecna was really out for vengeance, he would have just killed everybody instead of just injuring people and then running off with Holly. It's more like what happened with Will. And by the way, this is the anniversary of Will being captured the first time. So maybe there's no coincidences. There's some connection with that. And so Lucas goes off and visits Max. She's still in a coma. The military, knowing of all this stuff going down at the Wheeler's house, shows up. They get pictures and everything. They report back to their military leader, Dr. K, played by Linda Hamilton, by the way, which is awesome. And they find surveillance footage that shows 11 showed up at the house, and they really want to capture 11 because they think she is the key or the cause of all of this going on, and she can end it. So they want to capture her to be able to do that. So anyway, we go back to the radio station, which, if you remember last time, Will had that spell and I don't know if I talked about it in the last video or not, but Will had a spell and it blew out the power in the radio station. So they're sitting there trying to get the power back up. They have to get some new fuses, I think, that need to be plugged back in to get things back up and running. And while they're doing this, Will sits down and talks to his mom about, hey, I was seeing through the Demogorgon's eyes. I was feeling I was thinking what he thought. I was seeing through his eyes. And he's like, you know what? I thought the connection to the Upside Down was severed, but really it's not. I mean, we were out in California. I wasn't having that feeling of connection. Since we've moved back here, I feel like there's a connection and it's stronger than ever. And Robin's like, hey, maybe you're like a radio receiver. Like the closer you are to Vecna, the more like in tune and the more you feel the upside down or where he's at in the hive mind and all of that. And so he has the idea of you could use me to find Holly. I could go out there and maybe I can use my sense of connection to locate where Vecna and Holly are. And Joyce is like, no, 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 no way, you're not doing that. No. And so Robin then comes up with the idea of like she tells Joyce, "Oh, the flux capacitor is acting up and I need Will to come with me to fix it." So, but it was all obviously just a ruse for her and Will to go off and actually enact this plan. So we see that Will kind of first has this dizzy spell in the woods. So they think, well, let's go back to that spot. So while they're heading out in the woods back to that spot, they see a bunch of stones that someone had put in like kind of a swirling circle. And it makes him realize that, oh, when I was having that dizzy spell, I was also hearing laughter, which sounded like kids laughing. So they go to the merry-go-round at Holly's school and he realizes like, oh, maybe what I was actually doing is I'm connected to the hive mind, which we see in the beginning of episode 1, like how Vecna kind of infused Will with whatever essence from the upside down that created the connection. And so maybe I'm seeing also through Vecna's eyes, and Vecna's looking through the eyes of his victims. And I was actually seeing Holly on the merry-go-round. I was seeing through her eyes. And so he realizes that maybe he has this connection to be able to do that. So Will realize he's tapping into what Vecna's seeing when he's looking through the eyes of his next victims or whatever. And then we go back to the hospital and Mike and Nancy are sitting there waiting to hear news of her parent recovery from surgery and all that. And Mike all of a sudden is like, what if Mr. Whatsit is not just an imaginary friend? What if he's something else? And they're like, well, we need to go talk to Mrs. Wheeler and find out what she knows about Holly and her imaginary friend. Of course, the doctors don't want them having visitors and all that, so they get around not being able to go visit Mrs. Wheeler, and they finally get in there to talk to her, which she can't talk. So they bring a notepad and she writes down a description of Mr. Whatsit and what his name is. And his name is Henry. And as we know from previous seasons of the show, Henry became Vecna. So now we know that Holly's imaginary friend is Vecna. And then we go to seeing Vecna as Mr. Whatsit in Holly's eyes anyway. We see this, it's a nice sunny day. We see Henry/Vecna's house is all pristine and perfect. And we see Henry walking Holly into the house because Holly believes that Henry is the one that can keep her and her friends and family safe from the monsters that might come from the other side to get them. So it ends with Vecna bringing Holly into the house. Now that I've done a recap of episode 2, my reaction to it, I think overall it's an episode that you need to watch. It's not really super exciting. I think it's an episode that's laying a lot of groundwork for what's going to take place later on in the season. We learn a little bit more about Will's connection to Vecna and the hive mind that he's in control of over there. We get a nice little moment with Hopper and Eleven kind of hashing some things out, with him having issues about the death of his daughter and him worrying about Eleven and her safety by coming in the Upside Down. They kind of work through that and decide to push forward because what other choice do they have? We see the results of the Demogorgon attack. I think it's a solid episode. It just feels like an episode that's a stepping stone to what's going to happen in the rest of the season. So watch it, but it's not going to blow your socks off. That's all for this episode, and we'll see what happens next time. Bye.